Welcome back to another Broken Podcast. I'm Nick Taylor. It's been a minute, and it actually kind of has a lot to do with the topic that we're going to cover this week, which is setting boundaries. That has been a very difficult hurdle to jump for me. I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I've spent most of my life feeling obligated to help people even when I didn't want to. The thing is, it's okay to say no when you need to say no. It's understandable if that's a hard thing to do. But we can't let our lives be ran by what other people want from us. So today, we're going to touch on one of the hardest pieces of managing your mental health in everyday life. And that is setting and upholding boundaries. Boundaries are the personal limits and rules that we establish to protect our emotional, physical, and mental well-being. They define how we interact with others and how we allow others to interact with us. By setting boundaries, we communicate our needs and expectations, ensuring that our relationships are respectful and supportive. Here's just a quick definition of each of the boundaries that you can set. Physical boundaries. These pertain to your personal space and physical touch. They define who can touch you, how, and when. Emotional boundaries. These involve separating your feelings from others. They help you recognize where your emotions end and another's begin, preventing emotional manipulation or over-responsibility for others' feelings. Time boundaries. These relate to how you manage your time. They ensure that you allocate time for various aspects of your life, such as work, rest, and personal activities, without overcommitting. Digital boundaries. In our connected world, these boundaries govern our interactions in digital spaces. They help you manage screen time, online communication, and protect your digital privacy. Material boundaries. These concern your possessions and finances. They define how you share your belongings and money, ensuring that your resources are respected. Establishing healthy boundaries is crucial for several reasons. First one being self-respect. They affirm your self-worth and ensure that others treat you with respect. Mental health. Boundaries reduce stress and prevent burnout to ensure that you don't take on more than you can handle. Healthy relationships. They foster mutual respect and understanding, leading to more fulfilling interactions. Personal growth. By setting boundaries, you create a safe space for self-reflection and personal development. Understanding and implementing these boundaries can significantly enhance your quality of life, leading to healthier relationships and improved mental well-being. Boundaries are not one-size-fits-all. They are deeply personal and should reflect your unique experiences, values, and mental health needs. Recognizing and respecting your individual requirements is the first step towards establishing effective boundaries. You're probably going to cross some challenges when it comes to doing this, especially if you're new to it. So we'll go over some of the common ones that you might run across. The first challenge would be feelings of worthiness and low energy that can make it difficult for you to advocate for yourself. So what you can try to do is set limits on social engagement to prevent being overwhelmed. You have to allocate time for self-care activities even when motivation is low. Communicate your needs to trusted individuals so that you can build a support system. Another thing that you may struggle with is that excessive worry and fear of judgment can hinder boundary setting. You have to practice saying no to requests that cause undue stress. This is a really hard one for me. Saying no is a lot more difficult than it sounds. So you should limit exposure to anxiety-inducing situations when possible, and establish routines to create a sense of control and predictability. Trauma triggers can make certain interactions or environments distressing. So you need to try to identify and avoid known triggers if it's feasible. You need to communicate boundaries clearly to others, specifically what is and isn't acceptable for you. Seeking professional support to develop coping mechanisms and boundary setting skills is definitely something that is recommended. Childhood trauma can play into this too. Early experiences may have blurred the understanding of what healthy boundaries actually are. So engaging in therapy to explore and redefine personal boundaries is definitely something that's going to benefit you. Practice assertiveness in safe environments to build confidence, and then you can bring that over to other situations as you're able to grow and feel comfortable with doing it. Surround yourself with individuals who respect and support your boundaries. This is going to be a key element when you start actually trying to pursue setting boundaries. You can't just expect yourself to be able to do it with a stranger right off the bat. So starting with the people that you know are going to respect you and you know are going to support you in your journey, that's the place where you have to start, in a safe zone. And then assess areas in your life where you feel discomfort and resentment. These feelings often indicate where boundaries are needed. And once you're able to do that, then you need to define your needs. Clearly identify what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued in various aspects of your life. When establishing boundaries with somebody, you have to be able to communicate them clearly. Use assertive communication to express your boundaries to others. Anything that's portrayed as passive or passive-aggressive is probably going to get written off by somebody, especially if they have manipulative tendencies or they're passive or passive-aggressive themselves. Seeking support is something that definitely is going to help. Consider working with a mental health professional to navigate complex boundary issues, especially those stemming from trauma. I can tell you from personal experience, boundaries that surround trauma are some of the most difficult ones to put in place. If you're new to this, you really need to start somewhere comfortable. And boundaries surrounding trauma is not that place. But as you're able to grow and develop, it's going to be easier to jump that hurdle of setting a boundary when it comes to your trauma. You have to practice consistency when it comes to this. By reinforcing your boundaries regularly, it establishes them firmly with the people you're trying to set them with. Remember, setting boundaries is a form of self-care, and it's an essential step toward mental wellness. You're going to need to implement boundaries for your own personal mental health challenges. Implementing boundaries is a skill that can be developed over time. So here's some practical steps to guide that process. Self-awareness is key. By identifying areas in your life where you feel discomfort, resentment, or stress, those are good indicators that you need to have boundaries in those areas. Your limits have to be defined clearly. Articulate what you are comfortable with and what you're not. This clarity will help in communicating your boundaries to others. One of the hardest parts, especially for people who have been people-pleasing, is communicating assertively. So try using I statements to express your needs without blaming others. For example, I feel overwhelmed when I have too many commitments. I need to limit my engagements to manage my stress. That keeps everything on you, which makes it easier if you have people-pleasing tendencies, because you're not projecting it off onto somebody else. Because remember, as a people-pleaser, we want to please others. So if you own it for yourself, it makes it easier to follow through with. You gotta start small. Implement boundaries in less challenging areas to build confidence. As you become more comfortable, gradually address more complex areas. But don't do it in a way in which you're going to step too far too fast. If you put too much on yourself too soon, you're likely to fail. And if you fail too early, it's harder to get back up and get back on the horse. Consistency is key in boundary implementation. Regularly reinforce your boundaries to establish them firmly. Remember, it's okay to adjust your boundaries as your needs evolve. The goal is to create a balanced environment that supports your mental health and your well-being. Establishing boundaries is a significant step, but maintaining them is where the true challenge lies. Upholding your boundaries reinforces your self-respect and teaches others how to interact with you respectfully. It's essential to remember that boundaries are not just set once. They require ongoing attention and reinforcement. Regular self-reflection is part of that. Periodically assess your boundaries to ensure that they still align with your values and your needs. As you grow and change, your boundaries will need to evolve as well. You're going to have to anticipate that there will be pushback. Be prepared for resistance, especially from individuals who have benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past. You have to stay firm and remind yourself of the reasons you established these boundaries in the first place. This happens a lot for people who have been stuck in a people-pleasing cycle. Because people have gotten so used to you saying yes, they're going to assume that you're going to be available for them before they even ask the question. So hearing no coming from you, especially if it's the first time that they ever have, is really going to throw them off course. So they're going to try to push back to get that yes that they felt like was going to be there in the first place. This is going to make it difficult, and it's going to put you in some challenging situations. And unfortunately, it's usually the people that we're closest to that are the ones that are going to push back the hardest. So in some ways, this can test the validity of relationships. Surrounding yourself with individuals who respect you and respect your boundaries is something that's going to support your growth. Consider seeking guidance from a mental health professional in order to navigate these challenges, especially because it's so difficult to do right at the get-go. Trying to navigate this by yourself is not going to be an easy thing to do. It's still difficult even when you have help and support with it. You're going to need some self-compassion along the way, because this is a difficult journey. It's normal to feel guilt or discomfort when enforcing boundaries, especially if you're not used to prioritizing your own needs. Acknowledging these feelings without judgment and reminding yourself that setting boundaries is a form of self-care is one of the ways that you can overcome that. Remember, you need the boundaries for you. The goal here is for you to be able to prioritize yourself and give yourself the space that you need in order to enjoy your life to the fullest without feeling the need to have to do things for others when you don't want to. When somebody violates your boundaries, it's crucial to be able to address that situation promptly. You want to make sure that you do it in a way that they can relate it to the fact that they crossed that boundary. So reiterate your boundary. Calmly remind the individual that you established a line that should not be crossed. You may have to set consequences for those. If the behavior continues, you've got to outline the consequences for the person that's doing it, such as limiting contact or even seeking mediation between the two of you. You're going to have to follow through, and that is not an easy thing to do, but you are going to have to do it. You've got to enforce those consequences whenever it becomes necessary. This reinforces the seriousness of your boundaries and your commitment to your own self-respect. Maintaining boundaries is an ongoing process that requires patience and persistence. You've got to celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and recognize that each step strengthens your emotional well-being and your relationships. I personally have just gotten to the point where I can comfortably say no to people. That's something that I have never been able to do in the entirety of my life. Even when I have said no, it's eaten me away on the inside for some time because I feel like I've let people down just by telling them I can't handle doing something, when that's not actually the case. If somebody's relationship with you is strictly based off the fact that they can always count on you to say yes, that's not a positive relationship for you. The only one that's benefiting from that is the one that gets full access to you all the time with no repercussions. And that's not a relationship that you need, especially not as you try to heal and as you're trying to grow as a person. Handling the challenges that you're going to come across with boundaries, it's going to be difficult, especially if you're new to it. When you begin setting boundaries, it's common to encounter resistance. People get accustomed to your previous patterns, and they may feel unsettled or even offended by the changes that you're trying to make. It's essential to recognize that this pushback often reflects their discomfort with the change, not a flaw in your decision to establish the boundaries. Having assertive communication is going to help with responding to these people challenging your boundaries. It goes back to clearly and calmly expressing your boundaries with I statements. Like, I feel overwhelmed when plans change at the last minute. I need more notice to feel comfortable. Because approaching it that way emphasizes your feelings and needs without blaming others. This is going to be one of the hard ones. Limit over explaining. You don't have to give a reason behind your no. You're not obligated to justify your boundaries extensively. Over-explaining can lead to debates or attempts to invalidate your needs. In fact, if somebody is trying to cross one of your boundaries, especially if they're manipulative, they're going to attempt to invalidate your needs and make their own more important. So a simple, clear statement is often sufficient. You've got to anticipate that there will be an emotional response from people. Understand that some individuals may react with anger, guilt tripping, or manipulation. Prepare yourself emotionally for these reactions and stay grounded in your decision, prioritizing you and your well-being. It's not uncommon to experience internal conflict when enforcing boundaries, especially if you're new to the practice. You might feel guilty for asserting your needs, particularly if you're used to prioritizing others over yourself. Remind yourself that self-care is not selfish, it's necessary. You may be fearing rejection. There's a fear that setting boundaries will lead to a loss of relationships. While some relationships may change, those that are healthy will adapt and respect your needs. And if you do lose people over setting boundaries in order to better your own life, those relationships were probably not good ones to have in the first place. You might question whether your boundaries are valid. Self-doubt is something that happens, especially for those of us that are not used to doing this. You've got to trust your feelings and recognize that your needs are legitimate. Remember that setting boundaries is a skill. It's something that's going to improve as you practice it. Each time you uphold a boundary, you reinforce your self-worth and contribute to healthier relationships with other people as well. It really is a journey of self-discovery and self-empowerment. It's essential to approach setting boundaries with patience and self-compassion. Recognize that it's okay to make mistakes and that each experience offers an opportunity to grow. You're not always going to get it right the first time, and that's okay. Because if you're new to this, you're in the infancy of being able to prioritize yourself. You haven't been able to do this in the past, and it's okay to mess up along the way. You're going to learn along the way, even if you don't succeed the first time. Boundaries are vital for mental and emotional well-being. They help individuals feel safe, respected, and in control of their own lives. According to the Mayo Clinic Health System, setting boundaries can be a powerful tool for your mental and emotional health. See, professionals even promote it. By surrounding yourself with individuals who respect and support your boundaries, it opens communication and mutual respect to foster healthy relationships. I've been working on this myself, and it hasn't been an easy ride. In fact, that's one of the things that has kept me from recording another episode of my podcast for the last 2 weeks, because my boundaries have been tested. And although I started by working on them in places that I felt comfortable with, I was being tested in areas that I felt were a little bit above where I could manage at the time. But I've kind of worked through that. See, some people have heard that I have a podcast and have taken that information as, oh, he's a resource for me to start my own podcast. Well, that's not really the case. I'm an amateur at this. I'm still working on figuring it out on my own. And I'm still trying to develop and grow my own platform. I have limited knowledge, and I'm not a professional. There's only so much that I have to offer people. I can tell them how I got to where I am, and that's about it, because I'm still learning myself. Not to mention that I don't have the time to help others with their podcast. I've got plenty of other things that I do as a mental health advocate that take up a lot of my time, and this is time that I don't get paid for. The thing is, I enjoy doing this. This is something that not only helps me, but helps other people. As I sit down to talk through how we can do things to better our own mental health journeys, it's helping me to be able to talk with you guys. This is actually part of the healing process for me, and I enjoy it. And by somebody feeling like they can use me as a resource for their own personal gain, I felt more than violated, but I didn't know how to address it. Because I have suffered with people-pleasing tendencies throughout my entire life. I'm 32 years old and figuring out how to do this for the first time myself. Although I never committed to helping somebody with their own podcast, There were a few people that tried to use manipulative language to make it appear as though I had. They're on their own mental health journey themselves. I'm not faulting them, but some of it came back to no means no, and that wasn't being accepted. And I'll be honest, it kind of hurt pretty bad to be looked at as a resource for personal gain and not as a human being. That may have not been the intention of the person that was doing it, but that's definitely how it came across. I did help them out in steering them in the direction of where I started and set a firm boundary in my guide to do that this is all that I know and this is all that I can help you with. Yet, they still came back, trying to get me to do more. And I'll be honest with you guys, I just cut communication. Because I had already established this is as far as I'm willing to advise, I didn't feel like there was a need for me to say anything else. Everything had already been said. I'll tell you right now, it was super empowering, but it was also nerve-wracking because I've never been able to do that before. I'll typically cave. People can see that, and people will try to take advantage of it. But that's where setting boundaries gives you the power back and the control over your own life. And it is an important skill for you to have to preserve your own self-worth, limit the access that other people have to you, and maintain control over your own life and how you spend your own time. So as we conclude this episode of Another Broken Podcast, let's reflect on the transformative journey that we've explored together. Setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is not just a skill, it's a profound act of self-respect and self-care. We've delved into the personalized nature of boundaries, recognizing that each individual's experiences, challenges, and needs shape the boundaries they must establish. Whether navigating the complexities of depression, anxiety, PTSD, or healing from childhood trauma, the path to setting boundaries is deeply personal and uniquely empowering. Implementing these boundaries requires intentionality, patience, and courage. It's about taking deliberate steps to honor your well-being, even when faced with internal doubts or external resistance. Remember, it's okay to start small, to seek support, and to adjust your boundaries as you grow and evolve. Maintaining and upholding your boundaries is an ongoing commitment to yourself. It's about consistently reinforcing your limits, communicating them clearly, and standing firm in the face of challenges. This steadfastness not only protects your mental and emotional health, but also teaches others how to engage with you respectfully. When your boundaries are questioned or challenged, hold on to the understanding that your needs are valid. Respond with clarity and confidence, and don't hesitate to seek support from trusted individuals or professionals. Your commitment to your boundaries is a testament to your growth and resilience. As you continue on this journey, remember that setting boundaries is not about building walls, but about creating spaces where you can thrive. It's about defining what is acceptable and what isn't, not just for others, but for yourself. Embrace this practice as a lifelong journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and healing. I'm glad you were able to join us for this important conversation. And I appreciate your patience as I was working through things over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to do my best to ensure that I do continue to give you resources on a weekly basis. Although, if I do need to step away for just a little while, know that I'm always going to come back. If this episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to share it with others that might benefit from hearing it themselves. And like always, you can contact the podcast at brokenmedia1984@gmail.com, on TikTok under the username AnotherBrokenDad, or just by commenting on this episode. You know I'd love to hear from you. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're here with you every step of the way.